Welcome, everyone. We're entering a world not so distant from this one, where the boundaries between flesh and machine blur into obscurity, and neon-lit dreams collide with steel-clad nightmares. Welcome to the electrifying realm of Cyborg. This is a Cyborg actual play campaign using the Cyborg OSR rules published by Free League Publishing. I am DG, the Game Master, and I'm ready to guide you punks, you gutter trash, through this capitalist nightmare that will grind your souls down to a fine powder and scatter it to the wind. Alright, I'll get the music. 3, 2, 1. Let's get into it. Ah, punks! Look at you! Look at you all proud of yourselves. Homeowners! Got a place of your own, and you don't have to pay a slumlord in rent every month. You don't have to struggle to make ends meet just to have a roof over your head. And I bet you think that means you're better than me, doesn't it? Well, when's the housewarming party, punks? Am I invited to it? Because I hear you've been doing a lot over the last week or so, making that place shine, introducing all your little personal touches and turning that disused, dirty, creature-infested bunker into something a bit more worthy of calling itself a home. Or maybe not a home, more like a place you don't really mind spending extended periods of time at. You've been hard at work. Patton's been assisting to his best ability, but mostly leaves the work up to you. This is your hideout after all, and it ain't for commanding officers to slum it in the province barracks, you hear? So he's left it up to you to add your own personal touches to your new home. You haven't had any jobs in this time, not until Patton's satisfied that your hideout is fit for purpose. Apparently, Ransom has been trying to get a hold of you to call upon your talents, and Patton's blocked him at every turn. So, let's get right down to business then, punks. The bunker. Patton's disused bunker down there in Barnyard Fields, right across the canal from the wastes of Ground Zero. It's your home. Let's see what you've done to it. As Frank says, our house in the middle of our street. Our house. So I guess it's fitting then that we'll start with Frank. I know Frank had some plans to excavate a few new rooms, but what else has he done over these past few very busy days?
Well, I have Frank has excavated about 15 extra rooms, and every once in a while, people have heard a disconcerting, because it's going to operationally be necessary. And it's that whole not his voice when he says that situation. And so he has drawn up, he's excavated all of these rooms, and for the most part, it looks like you've walked into a Deep Space Nine TV set, and the television show, and it looks like every room has just been modeled after that, up to and including fake starscapes out the windows with fake windows. However, every once in a while, there will just be a room that is inexplicably a shrine to cricket or 70s and 80s rock bands, and it's just weird. You'll just go into this room that it makes no sense whatsoever, but he's a bot and he works 24 hours a day, and let's face it, of all of you, he's the only one that's likely to know how to do things like drywall and paint.
Yeah, he's a mining robot, and part of his duties back when he was doing what a mining robot does was adding new shafts, extending mine tunnels, rigging up infrastructure for the mine carts and the elevators. So the rest of you aren't entirely sure how Frank manages to excavate new rooms out of solid concrete and how he manages to do it so quickly, but well, he doesn't seem to have caused any damage to the structure of the bunker itself. All he's managed to do is make it bigger, roomier. Each room is a incredibly detailed scale model of one of the rooms from the Star Trek ship, although there's random AC/DC and Def Leppard posters up on the walls here and there. And Frank, I won't make you roll for all of this, because after all, this is what you do best. Filling those rooms with all of the Star Trek memorabilia and all, setting up a shrine to your favourite cricket players of the 20th century, none of the names being familiar to anyone else. Some of that stuff's gonna set you back a pretty penny, so I'd like you to subtract 300 creds from your total, please. However, the good news is that with all these new rooms in the bunker, Frank's rooms, his perfect replica of the Star Trek starship, means that the bunker is a bit more of a labyrinth now, a bit more of a maze. It's not simply a corridor with a couple of solitary rooms branching off from it. All of Frank's rooms seem to interconnect, you can walk between them, and if ever this place falls under attack, wink wink, you'll have a few more spots which you can use to sneak around, get a vantage point, or get the drop on your assailants. Next up, I'm curious to know what PU's been up to. He's been working very hard to make his corner of the compound homely, as he says, but what exactly does PU mean when he says that?
Other than leaving a dark, decrepit, and abandoned bunker more soiled than he found it, which is impressive nonetheless, I think PU would have spent a good amount of time probably setting up defenses. You see, PU is very skilled into breaking into places. That is his whole gist and his whole background. So he would know exactly where a skilled thief would be looking to break into a place.
Yeah.
And subversively, exactly where they wouldn't be looking. So he's set up traps made up of not so great smelling concoctions laid in bottles underneath sets of steps, sets of old shotguns that he managed to deal up with 7 Alarm Burger, the 7 Alarm Burger crew. Perhaps
Wasabi Burger's very pleased when you tell him you're outfitting an entire hideout. He opens his stocks to immediately. Oh boy, this sounds like an 12 alarms.
Yeah, so I've been working with him as an old connection. I worked with Charlie to help weld some pipes that I've jammed through the exit to the sewers. So if someone was to set off one of the traps near the entrance, it hits them face first with a set of sewer gas. All sorts of disgusting knickknacks and traps laid by a thief himself to try and make it a little bit more difficult for someone to get at the stash that they might be hiding here.
You're actually caught in the middle of your work one day by the rest of the crew, and they stand there lingering for a moment, watching you feed pipes through the thick metal door out to the sewers. Noxious sewer gas leaking into the bunker, instantly putrefying the area around it, baking grime into the floors and the walls, and well, They're about to open their mouths to tell you to stop slacking off until Patton comes rolling past, narrows his eyes, watches you at your work for a few moments, and then nods in approval, flashing you a thumbs up. He says, "Good job, soldiers! Sapping is one of the unspoken arts of a good military offense. We always talk about hitting them behind enemy lines, but sometimes you gotta shore up as well for a good defense, soldier."
Nothing better than a little bit of chemical warfare to, even the odds that way.
Just like the Iran-Contras. So I'd like PU to go ahead and roll me an agility check, and you may add +2 if you have thievery, and we'll see just how well you manage to probe the defenses, set them up, test them over and over again, and how tight you manage to lock it all down.
And how much PU remembers to inform everyone else exactly where the traps are laid.
The traps are laid.
Oh no.
Wow, okay, call that a 25.
25. Well, it's pretty obvious where most of the traps are. Every part of the bunker that PU's touched is left with an unmistakable odor, a miasma of sweat and urine and feces and moldy food. And so the rest of the crew know which areas of the bunker to give a wide berth.
Not that they weren't already.
Not that they weren't already. The defenses seem to be fairly well considered. You go at this quite methodically, thinking how you know a thief or an infiltrator would, securing the blind spots that no one else would think of, and after a few days' work, you're confident that, well, if anyone does make it into the bunker, they'll have to contend with an awful lot of embarrassing, potentially very dangerous obstacles. I'd like you to subtract 300 credits from your total, please.
Happy to.
Cover the costs. Then, we'll move to Azure. It's the first time in years you've had a place to call your own, a place you can actually set up all your hacker stuff and let that inner geek finally emerge and express herself to the world. What have you been doing?
Well, some of the very first things was went and grabbed a mattress from the bunk room, dragged it over to the control room and shoved it in the corner because I won't be leaving this room very often.
Yeah.
I got a few ancient anime posters, like Bleach and things like that. I need to get my sword ready. And just stuck them up all over the control room. And this is basically like where I'm setting up my nest. And I kind of wanted to see as well, once I had that all comfortable, to see if what I could do to upgrade the computers itself in the control room, and what sort of things I had access to.
Yeah.
Do that.
So the control room is now Azure's nest. Anyone who would step inside the control room would find Azure on her mattress in the corner, cyber deck out, surrounded by collapsible monitors, a myriad of cables leading from the back of her head, the side of her neck, from the cyber deck into all sorts of receptacles and jack points throughout the room. The old server farm humming loudly, rainbow LEDs flickering on every inch as its processor is constantly stressed, 100% running all of Azure's proprietary software and stress tests, and the little space that remains is, of course, covered up in your ancient anime posters. "What in tarnation is an evangelical lion?" says Patton, staring at a faded poster of a young teenage girl in a red bodysuit standing in front of a bipedal mech.
Well, you see, it's a really interesting anime about this like
Nerd.
They look like giant. Sorry.
No, what, huh?
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
You say so.
Patton groans. I've never been much of a cat person, so I'll leave these animated lions to you. And Azure, I'd like you to go ahead and make me a knowledge roll. You may add +2, of course, for your technology, and hell, let's say IMIN applies here too. After all, there's no pressure here.
That's a number. Math is hard. 23.
23, very nice. So
Rolling
you
really
managed
high.
Yeah, rolling really high, which is good because all this
When
stuff.
you have advantage, it helps.
Yeah, it helps. All this stuff's going to come into play in the final session or thereabouts. So this is good. You want to roll high on these things and make your lives a lot easier later on. So you managed to pull some favors with some of your old contacts. You're not officially part of any hacker collective anymore, and you still have some bad blood with your most recent collective. You still owe them a bit of money. But there's a few hackers out there who still respect you, and ever since you've become a merc, it seems they respect you even more, and they're quite willing to get you access to some top-of-the-line ex-military hardware to beef up the defenses of your control room and allow you to become a goddess of the digital realm, as one of them puts it. Not only are you able to beef up the defenses of the bunker so that anyone relying on any sort of hacking would not be able to even get to you from outside the bunker. They need to come into the bunker first. Even then, the myriad of programs you have running interference would make any hacker or anyone cybered up find themselves struggling to make their hardware do what they want it to. Fighting against your very powerful influence. In addition, you managed to set aside a little corner in your virtual domain within the control room, a secret back door hidden to all outside sources, only visible to you, that you can use to get into the wider Psi net. Conduct your internet research from the comfort of your control room without having to worry about anyone tracing you to your actual location, making any research or legwork you do in cyberspace, if conducted from the control room, much, much safer.
If I could just intrude here for a moment.
Go ahead, Frank.
That was terribly, terribly naive. Let's just do a quick hand count. Who here thinks that Azure is going to get very far without being constantly interrupted by some task Frank is doing?
Yeah, there is that.
Probably.
And I should point out, there are some robots that are walking around that probably are going to be terrifying.
Yeah, well, that might be Charlie. That might be something Charlie's involved in. So let's move on to Charlie, our resident gearhead. Frank's left a bunch of broken down robotic corpses in your care, the collected works of your entire merc career so far, and told you to get them up and running to serve as mobile security, to patrol the perimeter of the bunker, to be stationed at all of the choke points, ready and waiting for any possible threats. But it's up to you whether you want to get yourself stuck into that, or whether you have some personal touches of your own you'd like to busy yourself with.
And I don't think Frank told Charlie to do anything. He probably just dragged several tons of robot carcasses and said, "Look what I found for you," and
Yeah.
then left.
Strangely enough, quite a few of them were police bots.
The security bots, random utility bots, flying drones, turrets. There's a huge assortment. So, Charlie.
Wasn't there also a robot dog at one point?
Yeah, the very first robot you took down in the second session.
Yeah, so I've been working mostly on that. I've also been doing something that PU would probably love. I've been going outside and scavenging through any dumpster, any piece of old electronic equipment, and just bringing it all back inside of the base.
You gotta get right to the bottom, Charlie. All the best juices are right at the bottom.
I'm sure he's already clicked them all off anyway, so they're probably clean enough by now to some degree, knowing him.
You've managed to... Go ahead.
I was going to say, and everything is just starting to get a little bit messy in their room. They piled everything against the walls.
You've managed to accrue quite a collection of old circuit boards and spark plugs and spent batteries, and Frank and Azure and PU might be getting a bit excited to see what you intend to build out of all these supplies, all these pieces of scrap, until you inform them that, well, you're not going to build anything. This is 6 months' supply of dog food. Rusty's going to be living like a king down here in the bunker. And go ahead.
I'll always get Rusty extra on top of what
extra,
I need.
Yeah. And so, whenever anyone pokes their head into your room, they find you toiling away, putting those robots that Frank brought to you back as best you can, while Rusty absent-mindedly chews on old circuit boards and handfuls of wire. I'd like you, Charlie, to go ahead and roll me a knowledge check, and you may add +2 for your mechanics, please.
So, I have made 3 things. So we can go on that after. 1 second, let me get
Yes,
my dice.
I'll have you introduce them in a moment.
So, natural 20.
Natural 20.
Oh my god.
So, Frank seemed to think most of these robots were just a little bit damaged and would require nothing more than some good old-fashioned TLC to be back in working order. That's not true. They're riddled with bullet holes. Important components have been absolutely smashed. There are entire parts of their bodies that are warped and bent and burnt and charred. And you end up having to scrounge together quite a few spare parts from various sources to get them back into working order. So I'd like you to mark 200 creds off your total, please.
That is fine.
The good news is that there's now a in-house security team for your new bunker. An eagerly yipping robot dog that Rusty takes an immediate dislike to, expositing a loud growl, growl every time it comes close to him and his pile of circuit boards and wires. A couple of utility bots repurposed as frontline fighters, and a particularly skilled sharpshooter bot that spends most of its time parked outside on the roof of the bunker, constantly watching the surrounding streets for signs of danger. But that's not all.
3 teeny tiny robots.
Yeah. This is what Charlie got from leveling up, picking another of the orphaned gearhead perks. When Charlie's finally done with all his work, he steps out of the rec room that is repurposed into his workshop, and with a flourish unveils his latest 3 companions.
Sorry, the name kind of get me every single time, but they're the 3 flyeteers.
Oh my god.
They are literally the size of flies.
3 flyeteers.
They
Yeah.
just fly around. They seem to like PU a little bit. I don't
Understandable.
quite know why.
I'm very attractive. I understand.
He must have a very high heat signature compared to the rest of us.
I wouldn't know
He
about
attracts
that.
something.
As Charlie presents them with a flourish, Patton screws up his face in puzzlement, and he says, Who the what now? I can't see anything, soldier! And it takes you a moment to realize that Charlie seems to be referring to three tiny little buzzing blowfly-sized automatons, the 3 flyer-tears. They take an immediate liking to PU, and they're immediately lost in the full living cloud of biological blowflies that harasses him all the time. And Charlie, you'd almost instantly lose them in that crowd of flies, were it not for the tiny little feathered swordsman's caps that each of the blowflies wears. Each of the 3 flyer-tears dressed for the part.
So, for anyone who doesn't know what they do, they're basically heat sensing little things, and they have 3D scanners on them. So they just fly around the base and make sure that nothing humanoid or animal gets in without us knowing as well.
Yeah,
fantastic.
You can also take them with you on jobs. They're only the size of blowflies. Good little surveillance drones that you can deploy pretty much anywhere.
They could probably play with Frank's little surveillance droid.
Yeah. I don't know, Frank. Do you think Spot would like the 3 flyer-tears? They're much smaller than him, a bit more boisterous, a bit more full of energy, and he doesn't really seem to like that French sneer he claims he can hear in the buzzing of their wings.
Well, I'm not sure that Frank particularly notices. I think that at the moment he's still trying to figure out a way to put in a turbo lift and a hollow deck. But I mean, 10 forward was easy. But there is going to be a possibility that all over the place there are going to be little itty-bitty cableless landing roosts for the various insect, so they can land and then just top up their charge. And they'll be the size of a Tic Tac, and they'll just be stuck to random light fixtures and doors and what have you, anything with a little bit of juice, so that either the flies or Spot can just land and charge their batteries.
Yeah, they do seem to take to this quite well, doing many more circuits of the bunker during the day, being able to essentially plop down a recharge anywhere. The only possibly negative side effect you notice is that hologram of Captain Picard in one of the rooms seems to be brushing his hand around his face, swatting at invisible insects a bit more often than you remember him doing in the show. And so, after 8 days of solid work, you proudly show off the fruits of your labour to Patton. His tank treads slowly carry him through the bunker, and he silently stops in each of the rooms, his narrowed eagle eyes taking in everything, all the changes you've made, as he silently evaluates the tactical potential of each vantage point, every choke point, every corner. And then finally, after what feels like the most nerve-wracking hour you've ever experienced in your lives, he meets you in the doorway of the control room, takes one last look at Azure's hacker nest, and then smiles a broad smile, obviously satisfied with everything he's seen. He raises a beefy hand to his head in a salute, and he says, "Commendations for all of you, soldiers! If I had medals, I'd be granting them to each and every one of you." This base is up to scratch. It's beyond up to scratch. I pity the poor bastards who have to try to crack this nut.
Well, hopefully we'll be doing the cracking, but you know.
Give me
now-
a robot for that.
Let's not forget why we're here, Patton says, folding his arms, gesturing to the mess of cables and cords that run across the floor of Azure's control room. We gotta figure out what's going on in Frank's head. We gotta make sure that whatever the Shortfall Collective and the Scorpions are planning, that they can't use what's in his noggin as a vector of attack. Don't want those sons of bitches sneaking up on us when we're sleeping.
Well, I've done what I can to secure the area against any other cyber invasion, so I think now's as safe a time as any to try and poke around.
Frank
Yeah,
is going to walk up to Patton, salute. I reckon I can say with 100% certainty there ain't nothing going on in my head, sir.
Hope that's the case, Frank. I can't, in good conscience, let you do any more merc jobs until I can pronounce you with a clean bill of health. So, as they say in the business, it's time to reconnoiter and gather intelligence deep behind enemy lines. Well, let's hope it ain't so dire as that. He looks at Azure and he says, So, you got a place for, our big lunker here to make himself comfortable while you get to work?
You could lie on the mattress I set up.
You want me to help clean Bill first?
No, we'll save the toothbrush scrubbing till later.
I mean, it's not like he said that we got to clean PU first. He said we got to clean Bill
Don't you
first.
fucking dare.
There's an idea.
Well, Frank, maybe if Azure manages to work her magic on that thing in your noggin, Bill won't need to be cleaned. Don't worry. Don't feel bad that he gets to that has to miss out, Frank, 'cause he ain't in as bad a situation as PU cleanliness-wise. But still, Patton looks you in the eyes, Frank, and he smiles at you in much the same way a concerned parent or teacher would smile at a child, figuring out how to explain a heavy topic like reproduction or taxes. And he says, "You've been hearing voices in your head, right? You said
long pause.
one of the androids down this place saluted you."
You said there was a long pause, and he looked Frank straight in the eyes.
Yep.
Come on, Godson, out with it.
At this,
Oh no.
Patton's eyebrows raise. For a moment, actually, I'd like Azure, Charlie, and PU to go ahead and make presence checks for me. You may add +2 if you have either insight or perception.
I rolled a 12.
12.
18.
18. And PU?
11.
PU, you're a bit too distracted by all of the chords in Azure's nest. It's messy, but it's not your kind of mess. You can tell that she has everything organized in her own way, and it's driving you insane.
This is all too color-coded for me. I gotta fuck it up somehow.
Simultaneously messy and organized, but the rest of you notice that momentary flicker of recognition in Patton's eyes, the brief, genuinely joyful smile that slips onto his face for only a fraction of a second before he regains his composure, nods, continues to look Frank in the eyes, and says, Well, now, soldier, I think you understand perfectly the mission you've been tasked with. And then with a flourish, he turns to Azure and he says, Right. Commence the operation. If you don't mind, I'll be staying here. He remains in the doorway of the control room, his arms folded, watching over the whole deal, because I want to make sure we get to the bottom of whatever's happening in Frank's skull. And I want to see it with my own 2 eyes that he ain't gonna be a target for any of your enemies. So, don't mind me. Just work like you normally do. But remember, your commanding officer scrutinizing every little thing you do.
That's one way to put me at ease.
Looks over at PU and he says, And you, PU, for God's sake, stop fidgeting with those cords and come over here. You're on lookout duty. Never know what's gonna happen once she cracks open his skull. Remember last time?
PU pulls himself away from the stick of the little piece of magnesium he was about to light, and he says, "Yeah, no worries, boss. But Azor, don't fuck him up anymore, or it's your noggin we're cracking."
Do my best.
God knows how expensive that'd
Everybody
be.
stop talking to Azor. And Frank wanders over, reaches into one of his little containers that he has all over his body. He pulls out something. Now, you all have all seen him at various times fiddling with stuff. He's always fiddling with something. And he's pulled out a pair of, they are roughly 1.5 centimeters by 1.5 centimeters. What he's done is he's found some loose metal that was an uncommonly cherry red color, very close to Azur's hair color. And he has meticulously smushed them with his, I guess you'd call them fingers, until they're dice shaped.
Oh,
And he has hollowed out and given them numbers, and he's actually made quite a job of it. And he just gives them to Azur and just says, Ignore everybody, you're gonna do fine.
thank you. Yeah, Frank, you're okay with me poking around in there? I have a feeling you understand more than what you let on about what I'm doing.
Unbeknownst to Azure, these makeshift dice, instruments of a game that Frank calls D&D, a term dredged up somewhere from the depths of his memory bank, a term unknown to most of you, possess a strange power, and as he drops them into your hand, Azure, you can feel almost what feels like static electricity pulsating in each and every one of the little metal polyhedrons. And whenever you spend a glitch next, I will describe what they do. For now, though, Patton looks over at Frank, a broad smile on his face, and he says, Well now, you seem to be confident. Don't worry. Azure is good at what she does. She'll have you right as rain in no time. So make yourself comfortable. Don't fidget. And for the love of God, don't try to lash out, smack anyone, or stand up while she's in the middle of scrambling your brains. And that's an order.
Well, that's the point. That did happen last time, didn't it?
Frank is going to go and sit down in the in whatever chair or examination thing or operating thing that Azur has prepared in her lab.
In this case,
he just
I think it's pretty much just sitting on the mattress on the floor.
Yep.
and the cranium we're talking, it's like it explodes. Every part of his head assembly just opens up in this horrifying display.
Yeah, see, his pseudo skin just sort of peels away, looking like it's melting. You hear a high-pitched whirring sound from somewhere behind his eyes as both of his ears begin to spin violently and extract themselves from their holes, and then in one sudden horrifying motion, his head just bisects through the middle. Both sides of his face just dropping open,
just like Ghost in the Shell.
opening like a clamshell, leaving behind the bare metal endoskeleton underneath. Frank's eyes, nothing more than sinister red orbs gleaming at you as you begin your work.
Well, let's get started, I guess.
Sure. Your first task would be to figure out where Frank's CPU is. You have a rough idea from last time, but last time you weren't really able to dig in deep, extract it, and figure out exactly what it's connected to and how it works. That's where you think you'll be able to get most of what you need to do done. If you can get that CPU out, then you can easily piggyback on its many connections to Frank's nervous system and hopefully secure them. But there's something in the back of your mind eating at you as you peer down into the mess of cables and circuitry inside Frank's hollow skull, and that is, well, last time you did this, you seemed to make something stir, something hidden, something sleeping dormant in Frank's memory banks, and part of you, the hacker's curiosity, wants to find whatever that is and cause it to stir again, to awaken. So, how would you like to go about your job?
Yes.
You could simply do what you did back at Patton, start rooting around yourself, or you could maybe connect your cyber deck directly to Frank, take an internal approach. Or you could daisy chain yourself, Frank, and the ancient server farm together, add a bit more processing power, and brute force all of his connections until you find the right one, leading you right to the CPU.
Like, brute force approach is probably not the best idea. Who knows what that could do. So I'm kind of tempted to poke around a bit, jack in, poke around a bit, and see what I can find.
Yeah. So what's your knowledge score?
3.
3. With a +3, I won't make you roll for this first step. Everyone watches, gathered around, silently watching you as you disconnect multicolored wires carefully, one by one, lift pieces of circuitry out of Frank's receptacle and lay them down on the mattress next to him, slowly disconnecting parts of his body from his CPU, and you watch as first his arms droop, fall limp, his legs twitch and stop moving, and then his right eye flickers and turns off as you finally get to the very bottom of his cranium and find what surely must be his CPU. You remember Patton explaining that somewhere deep inside Frank is a piece of biological brain. You instantly recognize it. It's right at the base of the cranium, exactly where the cerebellum would be. Actually, is that the cerebellum at the very bottom?
I think so.
Yeah.
The cerebellum is the bulbous bit at the back.
That's what I'm talking about. It's exactly where the cerebellum would be, in a human skull. Except it's only the cerebellum, that bulbous grey matter from the very back, the hind brain, connected to a mass of wires. Even now, with Frank half deactivated, each of them pulsing with electricity, all of them connected to one chip down the shaft of his neck. And this is very bizarre, Azure, as you don your rubber gloves, navigate the pulsing wires, and detach the chip, bring it up into the light so you can get a better look at it. The first thing you notice is it's much smaller than you would expect it to be. A robot of Frank's size typically has a CPU that would at the very least fit in the palm of your hand. But this chip is really tiny. Think micro SIM. Think even smaller than that. This chip, you'd be surprised if its entire surface area would be able to cover your thumbnail. It seems incredibly small and incredibly underpowered for the complex piece of machinery that Frank is. And then there's the serial number. The serial number and the designation, a faint Kartel maker's logo stamped onto the green circuitry. Go ahead and roll me a knowledge check and add a +2 for your technology to see what you glean from this serial number.
14.
14. A question mark pops up on your face mask as you scratch your head. This can't be. That serial designation, ABK112, it appears that Frank's body is being powered by the CPU of a child's easy bake oven.
Oh my god.
Amazing.
It's clear to you that this thing is at most outputting maybe 5% of the processing power that would normally be required to cause a robot like Frank to function. Not only that, it's astounding to you that Frank has any kind of personality that is sentient at all.
Clearly, this chip isn't everything.
It does appear to be a pretty standard, generic, off-the-shelf component, though. It doesn't seem to be connected to Frank in any way that would preclude you from replacing it with something else. It doesn't seem to have been designed specifically for Frank. The connections between the CPU, the brain, and the rest of his nervous system are all pretty much interchangeable, and you wonder what might happen if you were to swap it out for a more powerful chip.
Do I have anything at hand?
With a knowledge score of +3, I'd say you can scrounge something up from the myriad things you have scattered around you, not to mention Charlie's collection of circuitry and scrap in one of the other rooms.
Careful, Rusty is very defensive.
Naturally, the issue with replacing a CPU is that whatever programming exists may or may not run on a different CPU.
So it'd be a two-step process. You'd first have to flash his CPU, copy any programming that's stored on it, then reflash that to the new one. And at the same time, make sure that none of Frank's memory banks or any of his other components are harmed in the changeover. You stare down at that cerebellum, still very obviously alive, even with Frank docile, half deactivated. The brain is pulsing with energy. You think as long as that brain doesn't come to any harm, Frank should be okay. And while you're at it, while you're flashing a new CPU, you can go ahead and insert all of your proprietary protections as well. In fact, thinking about it, you wonder if on this pitiful CPU that's already in Frank, if your protections would run at all. You could still try to install them, but there'd be a chance that it simply doesn't have the juice to run them and allow Frank full access to his facilities.
Yeah, if I've got a more powerful chip and I think I can get it working, I would like to try that.
Charlie loudly announces, "I think I have just what you need." And Charlie, you leave the room for a few moments. Patton nods to PU, signaling for you to follow Charlie, just in case.
He is halfway through fumbling with his cigarette box as he's chewing down on a few of them at the same time, and hurries off to follow Charlie.
Charlie and PU, you enter the rec room at the other end of the bunker, the one that's now been repurposed as Charlie's workshop, the old, dusty pool table covered in an assortment of wires and circuits and computer chips. And Charlie, you remember purchasing a new CPU to get one of Frank's robot pals up and running, and you accidentally bought a second one. You have a spare CPU that would almost certainly fit Frank lying around here, but just as you set eyes on it, you groan inwardly. It's right on the top of Rusty's pile of wires and circuit boards, and as you approach, Rusty looks up. He's curled up right on top of the pile of scrap, and as you approach, he lifts his head, bares his razor-sharp teeth, and lets out a warning. Growl. Growl.
Rusty, you are not a dragon. You don't need a horde. I just need that one thing up there. Okay, you can have all the wires you ever need the rest of your life.
Charlie, go ahead and make a presence check for me.
Handling.
10.
Well,
10. Growl, says Rusty louder, and now he unfurls entirely, standing up on all fours, his front right paw directly over the CPU you're hoping to claim for yourself. His tail arcs right up as a warning. Even you, his master, have never actually been able to successfully extract something from him once he's claimed it as his next meal. You could try to calm him down further. You could offer him something else in exchange, or maybe you could simply just shut him down, or you look over at PU, and PU, you realize maybe this is why you followed along. It's right under his paw. If Charlie could distract him for just a moment, it'd be quite simple for you to just swap it with something else.
PU flashes that steely smile over at Charlie. Charlie thinks that he can see spinach in between his teeth, but knowing PU, that is not any kind of vegetable. And you want to go for the swipe?
Oh, 100%. But I'm gonna go get something a little bit more distracting first.
And what do you have in mind?
Some old CDs I found while running through the garbage.
You suspect that these are misplaced members of Frank's horde. They've all got very strange names on them, such as Metallica and Silverchair and Nirvana. And what do you do with them?
I'm gonna make them reflect the light from the ceiling onto the wall behind Rusty.
Oh, very nice.
To try and distract him with the cute little shiny spot.
What is your agility score, Charlie?
2.
2. Yeah, I won't make you roll. It's fairly easy for you to perform the sleight of hand required. You make one of the CDs catch a bit of ambient light and reflect it on the other wall. It looks like a little mote of bright white light skittering across the wall, and Rusty immediately acts the way you'd expect a cat to react when you flash a laser pointer. He leaps off the pile of electronics and rushes towards the dancing light on the wall, his tail wagging. Bark, 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 bark. He's only distracted for a second, though. As he clamps his teeth down on the mode of light, it dances away, and he notices that Charlie's grasping a very shiny disc in his hand. The distraction only lasts a second, but that should be enough for PU. So PU...
I throw the disc like a frisbee into the other side of the room.
Bark, 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 shouts Rusty as he takes off full tilt, and PU nonchalantly snatches
Yeah,
keep you out of the pile.
keep the tin can terrier busy, yeah?
Sorry, he's acting a little bit... kind of like you when you want to hoard the rubbish in your own room.
It's not hoarding. I'm a connoisseur. There's a big difference.
You keep stealing my electronics, man.
So PU, you have two options here. You can just swipe the CPU, or you can swap it with something else. Depends on how content you want Rusty to be when this is all said and done.
Well, I don't think I'm overly concerned with the pooch so much as I am, Frank, my buddy. So P is trying to keep it short and brief while we're handling the dog. It's just gonna snatch the CPU.
Yeah, no need to roll for that. I know how good you are with your agility. PU just reaches out and in a single flash snatches up the CPU, slides it into his greasy jacket pocket, and then quietly makes his way to the door, bowing and flourishing. Rusty looks back at his pile of goods. He sees that the CPU is no longer at the top, his prized possession. He looks up at you, Charlie, his master, and he hangs his head sadly. "Wine," he says.
Hey, do you want some puppy kibble later? We can go get some.
His head continues to hang. He whines again. It's the look that tells you he'll never forgive you for taking away his new toy. But he quickly forgets about it. You follow PU to the door of the room, take one last look over your shoulder at Rusty, and he's already curled up again on the pile, placing his head down on a stack of spent batteries, closing his eyes, and is snoring once again within seconds.
"Here you are, Azor. One chip with the dip," he says, handing over the overly greasy and oiled CPU.
Thank you. I grab it, wipe it off best I can.
Charlie slowly stumbles into the room behind PU. And Charlie, you can't help it. You can't help but feel that stabbing guilt in the back of your mind, that squirm of your insides, knowing that you've inflicted great disappointment on your best friend. But there are more important matters at hand. Azure, as you take the CPU, you notice that it's almost certainly going to be adequate for what you intend to do. This is the kind of CPU you expected to be in Frank in the first place. You connect the new CPU and the old one up to your cyber deck, a thin cord running from your keyboard to a connector on each of the CPUs, and it takes only a couple of keystrokes to flash the programming and copy it from one CPU to another. The copying is the easy part. As you copy it over, you notice that the programming contained on the CPU seems to be encrypted. But it's an old style of encryption, several generations out of date, and if you were so inclined, you could probably decompile it and truly understand what makes Frank tick.
Sorry, I think I missed that last part.
You could, if you wanted to, rather than just copying the firmware from one CPU to the other, you could decrypt it and understand what really makes Frank tick. Would you like to do that, or are you content to leave Frank with an ounce of privacy remaining? Simply copy the firmware over.
To a certain extent, that would be more of a breach of privacy than I would be willing to go into.
Yeah.
Hacker respecting privacy?
Of a friend, I have some morals.
Glad one of us does.
And so,
Yeah.
you fight with every ounce of willpower you have to force that idle curiosity into the back of your mind. You quickly flash the firmware, run a quick stress test on the new CPU to make sure it's actually able to operate. And it seems to be going without a hitch. All you have to do now is upload your proprietary software, your protections, the things that will keep Frank's CPU safe from any form of external attack. But how to go about doing it? I'll leave it up to you. There's sort of a sliding scale going on here. Every routine you upload onto this CPU will take a little bit of the CPU's processing power. So you could lock Frank down really tightly, but leave only the bare minimum CPU power he requires. Or you can be a bit more creative. Only upload the routines you think are essential and leave Frank with this vast wealth of processing power to utilize.
How much more powerful is this one compared to the Easy Bake Oven?
It's at least a 100-fold increase.
Right. Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking that, like, easily doing, like, half of that is a 50 times better than what he had before, while still giving a decent amount of capability to install protections.
Striking a balance.
So I'm kind of leaning for that, yeah, finding a balance there. So, like, not going all into one or the other.
Yeah, alright. Go ahead, make a knowledge technology check. Your IMIN will not apply. You have a feeling Frank would rather have his CPU back in his head sooner rather than later.
That's fair. I got a 19.
19. Very nice. You don't go the whole hog. You install the most essential routines, and then a secondary layer of defense, and a tertiary one as well. This still leaves at least 50% of the CPU's power unaccounted for. More than enough, you think, for Frank. Certainly much more than he was utilizing with the Easy Bake Oven before. And then, as everyone watches with bated breath, including Patton, who you notice with a jump in the pit of your stomach, has a look of intense, genuine concern on his face, beads of sweat rolling down his wrinkled brow. You slot the CPU back into Frank's cranium, reconnect all of the wires, and stand back.
Can I just be clear? The Easy Bake Oven module is in port 1, and that has now been removed, yes?
Yes, and replaced with something about 50 times more powerful.
Cool. Okay.
Frank,
No idea what this will do.
as you feel the chip being slotted in, as you feel all of your systems come back online one by one, as feeling returns to the tips of your fingers, then your legs, and your vision returns blurry at first and then clearer and clearer, clearer than it's ever been before, I would like you to make a toughness check for me, and you may add +2 if you have survival.
I'm sorry, I did not have my dice program in front of me for a second. That's gonna be a total of 12.
12. Would you like to glitch that? The DR for this is going to be 16.
No, Frank is not there. There's no Frank to glitch.
So,
All
assume
systems online.
all systems online, and Frank, the first thing you become aware of as soon as your faculties return is an overwhelming barrage of sensory information. The colours are suddenly brighter, more vibrant, the tiniest sounds amplified 100 times. You smell PU more than anyone's ever smelt him before. You feel your hands twitch, your fingers.
Oh yeah, sorry about that side effect. The
Your
smelling
fingers-
PU thing.
Your
No, I've
fingers
just sent something through,
grasping.
DG. I've just
Yep.
sent something through.
Ah, yes, we are thinking alike. Your fingers grasping violently at something in the air that isn't there. And then Frank opens his mouth. And the tiny control room is filled with an ear-splitting cacophony of static and meaningless electronic noise. If you were alive in the latter half of the 20th century, you might describe it as sounding a bit similar to a dial-up modem, but this is louder, harsher. Patton clasps the palms of his hands to his ears as the sound increases in intensity. And then your RCDs begin to go haywire. You all see artifacts in the corners of your vision, colours that are the wrong shade, shadows, flickers of movement that shouldn't be there, as Frank, his mouth still open, continues to shout this loud, soul-rending cacophony. And then the thing contained within him awakens. The digital ghost inside presents itself.
Oh no.
A ghost in the shell, you might say.
It appears as a series of ever-changing AR artifacts, corruption in your RCD, but instantly you feel its presence, the unmistakable sense that someone else is now with you in the room, an unmistakable sense of malevolence, hatred, hostility. Frank, you're not there, but this is your body doing the honors here. So go ahead and roll me an agility check for initiative.
Ooh, you really sure you want to do that?
I am sure.
I'm excited.
I'm not. I don't want to kill Frank.
Player is excited. Character is terrified.
Okay, that's gonna be a 14.
14. That's a pass for the ghost.
What have I done?
Frank immediately stands up in a single motion, propelling himself from the mattress, his mouth still open. He screams, "What have you done with me?"
I told you not to fuck him up, Azor!
I haven't done brain surgery that much, but like it seemed pretty simple.
Best hacker my ass!
Attack! Shouts Patton as he unslings an old-fashioned double-barrel shotgun from his shoulder, aiming it at Frank, but his finger hesitating on the trigger. PU, you follow suit, withdrawing your smart gun, not exactly sure what you're supposed to be fighting, waving it around, pointing at the corruption, at the artifact in the corners of your vision, and then Frank, or the thing that is inhabiting Frank's body, steps forwards. His eyes flicker bright red. And the ghost slides neatly, easily into your smart gun, hijacking its sensors, and you feel your arm moving of its own accord, raising the smart gun, and you watch as in your RCD the targeting reticle drifts towards Azure, locking onto her head.
Patton.
Fucking Chrome, don't watch out!
You don't think it would lock onto Patton? The large thing with a gun?
Not yet.
Okay.
Hey,
while,
I'm a big threat.
while this is
PU,
happening, Dale, am I able to cycle my vision visor by chance to go through the different settings to see if I can maybe see something that isn't visible to the naked eye?
you sure are.
So I'll cycle through my heat vision, night vision, and ultrasound, hoping to pick up something at least to know what we're up against.
As you feel your finger tighten on the trigger and every ounce of willpower in your body tries to force it to stop, your other hand reaches up, furiously jams at the buttons on your visor, cycling through the vision modes until you get to ultrasound. And then you see it. There's a humanoid figure standing in the middle of the room. It's only a couple of inches in front of Frank, and whenever Frank moves, it mirrors his movements. He raises his arm, it follows suit. Its face is flickering, blurred, its shape constantly changing and shifting before your eyes, but for a split second, you look into the figure's face, and Frank, I'd like you to describe what Dr. Alex White looks like.
Oh god.
Okay, Alex White, Professor Alex White, a relatively jovial-looking sort. He's a bit bald, but it's his choice, as in he gets a buzz cut to cut down on the maintenance. His beard, however, he doesn't attend to with anything like enough regularity for there to not be a beard. So there's a couple of inches of scruffy white. He has a good-natured cheerfulness about him. He's eaten quite a bit too many pizzas in his day, and he is a little bit oblivious to where the pizza might go as opposed to his lab coat. There are stains all over it. He just disheveled. Doesn't seem to be particularly worried about his appearance. However, there is something about him that just in a glance, people just assume he's the guy in charge, and people just assume that he's the smartest guy in the room. And there's just something about his body language that communicates that.
Right
is that what
now,
you were asking me, Dale?
Yeah. And right now, PU, you can see him, and his hands are clasped to his head, his mouth open in a silent scream as if he's racked by terrible agony. You feel your finger tightening on the trigger, PU, and I'd like you to go ahead and roll an attack against Azure for me.
Oh
Right,
no.
Fine.
Is the ghost making me use any of my abilities? FYI?
No, it's just making
Thank
you
fuck.
do a normal single shot with your smart gun.
Okay. Ooh. Azur, I'm sorry. That is a
Forgive you.
16 to hit.
16 to hit. So, Azure,
Can I use a glitch to reroll?
you can use a glitch to reroll.
I
and-
never thought I'd want to reroll a 16. That's worse.
Not good.
Worse or better.
17.
17. All right, Azure, I'd like you to go ahead and roll agility to defend, but you'll be doing it at disadvantage, which means roll the dice
Wait.
and take the lowest. Because PU's pretty good. He's a crack shot. And he did pass his roll.
So that's a 7. Can I use a glitch?
You can use a glitch. But you roll with disadvantage again on the reroll.
Oh, alright. Yeah, I mean, I may as well. And does anything happen with the dice for this, or is that only for technological related?
Only for technological related things.
Alright, well. Rolling the glitched, I get 12.
12.
10 on the
Ooh,
lower die, 17 on the higher die.
lovely. Just what you needed. You see PU's finger tightening on the trigger. You see his face screwing up in concentration as he shouts, hey, Chrome Dome, get down, get down! And then it clicks. He's about to fire at you, and with a gasp, you throw yourself to the floor as the smart gun peels off a barrage of rounds, shattering several of the monitors set into the wall behind you, showering you with glass.
Don't shoot PU, I told you, I'm sorry.
It's
And
not
then-
me. We got some great big greasy nerd in the middle of the room.
PU, you're up. What would you like to do?
Do I have control over my facilities again?
Seem to. It doesn't seem to follow up on the attack.
Righto then. I might go ahead, and I'm not sure how much this thing is going to, take to physical damage. At least in the bullet sense. So, I might try and get him to cool down a bit with a Chill of the Void.
Chill of the Void. Very, very nice. Go ahead and roll your nano check for me.
Can do. That is a presence, if I'm not mistaken.
It is indeed.
That's an 11 total.
11? That is unfortunately going to not succeed unless you want a glitch.
Fuck it, I had 3 of them, so might as well use another one. Let's drop that DR by 4.
Drop your DR by 4, meaning you pass. You step forwards and your free hand instantly is covered in diamond dust. With a wave, you send it flying across the room. Everyone feels the temperature drop. And Frank, I'd like you to make a toughness check for me, please.
Okay. Can you just double check the note I sent you?
I will. Let me just see. I may not have... Yes, no. Don't worry. I'm going to... Yeah, don't worry. White is not... He doesn't want to be doing
that's
this.
fine.
Yeah.
I just didn't know whether or not if you're aware that's fine. It's just
Yeah.
We roll 14.
14.
That meets.
Yeah, that meets it, and it beats it. So Frank, you don't take any damage from the Chill of the Void, but go ahead and roll your damage for me, PU, the D4.
Single point.
Single point. The flickering, wavering image of the scientist in front of you jerks his head back as if yelping from a sudden shock, and then before you have a chance to do anything else, His entire body seems to flicker, and he's standing on the other side of the room, once again clasping his hands to his head, screaming silently. Standing in front of the mattress, Frank's mouth opens and he roars again, "Leave me alone! I want to go back!" And then, Azure, you're up. What would you like to do?
Oh boy. This seems to be coming from Frank, right? From
It
Frank.
seems to be coming from Frank. However, PU can see the ghost itself. You have no hope of seeing the ghost unless you jack into Frank.
Or you could jack into PU's RCD.
Yeah, or you can jack in. You can
I
piggyback
don't know
onto.
how. Like, yeah, I wasn't sure if I could jack into Frank directly, considering he's up and moving. But if there was some way that I could, like, wirelessly get into, say, his RCD and attempt to communicate with either Frank or Professor Dr. White, Professor Doctor, whatever.
Go ahead and roll me a knowledge check. Just as if you were hacking.
Knowledge technology. Oh, so hacking with advantage. No, I'm not at advantage.
Yeah.
Not.
Just a straight knowledge.
There is pressure.
There is pressure here. A lot of pressure.
Knowledge in 18.
18. Nice. You see PU staring intently at something in the back of the room. You whirl around and all you can see is a mass of corruption and artifacting. But thinking quick, you slide a cable from your RCD to PU's and then suddenly you see it. You see the ghost buckled over in obvious agony, his face a mixture of terror and rage. And you attempt to sever the connection between him and Frank. Go ahead and roll a d6 for me.
6.
Nice. Your fingers furiously mash at the keyboard and execute a command. Frank and the ghost scream simultaneously, a scream of obvious agony. The ghost's body flickers and disappears for only a second. And then, in the blink of an eye, he steps out of thin air, this time in front of Patton, looking around wildly, angry, confused, screaming silent pleas of help. And that's when Patton's treads begin to whir. "Uh-oh!" shouts Patton, as his treads whir louder and louder, kicking up dirt and steam behind them, and then with the roar of an engine, Patton takes off at full speed, barreling into the room, intent to crush you under his treads like a speeding truck. I would like Charlie, Azure, and PU to each make agility checks to defend.
17.
17?
17.
17?
11. God damn it.
11. Azure sees him coming. She yanks the cable connecting her to PU, grabs Charlie, and the two of them leap out of the way as Patton comes speeding into the room, the engine louder than a garbage truck. Patton shouts, "Out of the way! Get out of the way! Duck! Duck! Duck for cover! Fire in the hole!" And PU, you're not fast enough. Your eyes still fixated on that ghost. Your hand still stiff. Your body
Is anyone
still
else seeing this wolf?
Yeah, your body's still not moving as fast as you want it to, and then you feel You feel Patton's body collide with your own, knocking you off your feet, and as you lie on the ground, you feel his treads moving over your body, crushing you into the concrete. You feel at least one of your bones snap as you take 13 points of damage.
Oh my god, that's my HP. So I'm going to go ahead and use my 17 alarm rum and half that.
Yeah, halve that down to 7. And your armor does absorb.
Holy shit.
Apply your armor.
Thank fuck I applied all 4, so I'm only going to take 3 points.
3 points.
Don't get run over by a tank.
You all hear from underneath Patton's treads. "Sorry, soldier!" shouts Patton as he continues moving over PU. PU rolls out from under the treads looking battered, bruised, bleeding, and then the whirring of the treads stops as the ghost reconstitutes once again in the center of the room, clutching its head in turmoil. And then Charlie, you're up. What would you like to do?
I have absolutely no idea. Because I can't see the ghost, and I can't really do much from him getting into other people's electronics.
Maybe you can't. But what about your little puppy?
Yeah.
He did kind of make Puppy angry.
And yet, he is your faithful companion. As there's been sounds of gunfire, there's been screams, and sure enough, you look over your shoulder and you see Rusty bounding down the corridor towards you. Bark! 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 Ready to defend, ready to leap into action.
I try and get Rusty to attach, essentially, to Frank at all.
Attach to Frank, yeah. See what comes of it?
Yeah.
He bares his razor-sharp teeth as he leaps forwards towards Frank. Frank opens his mouth and shouts, "You'll never take it from me!" Go ahead and roll me a knowledge +2 for your mechanics check, please.
I'm gonna use a glitch to reroll.
Yep.
Sorry.
It's okay.
14.
14, nice. Frank screams, but he doesn't seem to be aware of what's happening. He makes no resistance whatsoever as Rusty bounds towards him, leaps forwards, pinning him to the ground, splaying all fours out on Frank's chest, and then, with a snarl, sinking his teeth into the base of Frank's cranium. Go ahead and roll damage for Rusty, please.
Please be careful if we're going there. He only did 2.
2 points of damage. Frank, you take 2 points of damage, but you may use your armor to reduce it if you like. However, Frank, if you do use your armor to reduce the damage, then you'll be reducing the amount of damage the ghost will be taking, as it is projecting from your body.
Okay, I can't actually take less than 2 points. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 2 or 3 that it absorbs, and so
Okay,
so
that's
that's
2 points. So you take 2 points of damage as...
No, I mean, he doesn't take any. Doesn't take any.
Yes, so you're absorbing it. However, even though this doesn't appear to do any damage to the ghost, even though as sharp as Rusty's teeth are, they cannot seem to penetrate Frank's thick exoskeleton. At this moment, the ghost seems to pause, seems to stop screaming for just a split second. He lowers his hands from the side of his face. His gaze sweeps across the room, and fixates on Frank, lying there on the mattress, the dog sinking its teeth into the base of his neck, and Frank, something inside you stirs. You're jolted back to the borderline between sentience and oblivion, and if you like, Frank, you can try to rein this ghost in. Feeling that sharp pain from Rusty's teeth jolts you back to reality.
Self-destruct the power core.
Holy shit.
Self-destruct the power core.
Oh no.
Alright. You sure you want to do that, Frank?
Frank?
Yep.
Alright.
Frank, no!
Frank, go ahead and make me a toughness check to exert your sheer willpower over
It's alright,
the
Azure
persona.
said. We won't fight anything in the bunker, Azure said.
Because that's got to come from what? Because Frank is currently in a little sliver the size of a dime sitting on a tray. The Frank
Yeah.
identity is in the easy bake, so there's no Frank.
Yeah. But there's
So this
enough...
has to be White. And White is seeing himself. Yeah, he can't. He's not going to suffer for this. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. So go ahead, make that toughness check. See if White can break free of whatever torment he's in and enact control over Frank's
That's a
body.
natural 20, so it's a 23.
Natural 20, 23. The ghost pauses, staring intently at Frank, and then screwing his face up in concentration, he reaches out to touch Frank, wrapping his incorporeal, corrupting, wavering fingers over Frank's shoulder, clamping down as if Frank's an old buddy, and then I would like everyone except Frank to go ahead and make an agility roll for me.
I should have hung on to that.
16.
Oh my god, it rolled off with the 20 onto the 2. I'm going to re-roll that.
Go ahead.
That's all of my fucking...
Would none of Frank been copied over with the rest of the firmware, I guess?
You're kidding me.
Well, we'll get to that.
I got 2 2s.
2?
Oh no.
2.
Oh my god, 6 total.
6 total.
Tristan, you can use.
Do you want one of my glitches there, Trish?
I think Britt's already given me one. Thank you, though.
Go ahead, re-roll, third time's the charm.
That is a much better one at 23. Thank you.
Nice. As soon as you all see Frank's body begin to vibrate, you hear something hissing deep inside him. Energy building up. Patton shouts, "Fire in the hole!" as he grabs PU and his treads race towards the door. Charlie and Azure embrace each other and throw themselves to the ground as Frank's power core evacuates all of its pent-up energy. Plumes of electricity arc throughout the room, striking the concrete walls, singeing Azure's precious equipment. Plumes of black smoke linger in the air, and then suddenly all is calm. All is quiet. Frank, I would like you to take damage equal to half your HP, please.
Alright.
And then the Easy Bake Oven chip, still lying on the tray next to the mattress, explodes, energy surging down the cord, connecting it to Azure's equipment. You wait a few seconds for the smoke to clear, wait for the ringing in your ears to subside, and then you all raise your heads, peering into the smog-filled, charred room, and you see Frank still standing there, still somehow miraculously alive. And Frank, or should I say Alex, suddenly you remember it all. The airline gliding through the smog-filled skies, the wing of the plane cutting through the streams of holographic ads, the engine failing, the control panel beeping, the cockpit shaking, and then here. You're here.
You alright, big guy? Pew says, peeking his head from around the doorway.
Frank,
There's no reply.
well,
Never doing brain surgery again.
I don't think I'd let you. Pew's gonna walk up slowly to Frank through the charred room and wave his hands in front of the big guy's receptors.
there's no response, or at least no obvious one, but as you wave your hands again and again, suddenly something buzzes. Frank's eyes light up, and so, Adam, you might think
And then
Frank
fade.
is... Then fade. Adam, you might think Frank is dead, but remember, Azure did copy over the firmware from the Easy Bake chip onto the new one. Frank, or at least the essence of what is Frank, is still there. It's on a new chip, but perhaps Alex is the dominant personality right now. Something is inhabiting Frank's body. The question is, who? Patton peers down at Frank, very obviously concerned. He doesn't even take a moment to check if PU's okay. His treads carry him across the room, crunching over bits of burnt electronics. And then he peers into Frank's motionless eyes, his blank face. Patton screws up his face. And then he says, "Is anyone in there? Are you back from the front line, soldier?"
Is he Gonskis or...
Break him.
My
Patton.
guess would be Azure is seeing symbols and readings suggesting there's something there, but she's also seeing readings and such that are saying that something's not there.
She also starts seeing stars as a
It's
grimy
very
fist
confusing.
bonks her on the top of the head.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Azure, would you like to reconnect Frank to a power source? Get enough juice in him that he might be able to move, might be able to speak, might be able to do something.
I like Frank has overloaded his power core, right? So maybe if we plug him in, something, recharge, something. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cables or wires. Let's do it. And Pew starts pulling out cables from the
Here's cables. You don't pull out those cables. I need those.
pull out the cables. I'm already on it. Yeah.
Charlie, this looks like a job for you. Frank's power core just evacuated most of its built-up power. You have to get it up and running, but you don't trust the others to do it safely. You, however, have just spent 8 days putting robots back together. You're pretty sure you can get that power core safely connected, and you can do it in a way that won't result in Frank suddenly exploding, utterly destroying him, and subjecting you all to grievous bodily harm.
I'd like to avoid grievous bodily harm if possible.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't be fun to see an explosion.
Perhaps not in such an enclosed space.
True.
And
Well-
perhaps not our friend.
Yeah, I prefer it when I don't have to, scrape the big guy off the walls.
We could always get Rusty to also connect to him to see if he can fix the connection, and then try and plug him into a lower power source until he's charged enough to handle at least somewhat of a capacity.
Good idea. So go ahead and make me a knowledge check at +2 for your mechanics to get him up and running. If you like, you could send the 3 flyer tiers in. You could send them up through the connection into Frank's body to make sure that there are no bits of static electricity, no loose connectors, nothing like that could possibly backfire.
I feel really bad for my flies now because I don't know where that connection opens out into the world, and I don't really want to know. But sure, the flies can enter Frank's body.
All right, so go ahead and do the same roll, but add +1 to it to account for your little fly cateers.
21.
21. So, you hold out your hand and the 3 blowfly-sized automatons zoom forwards. They hover for a moment in front of Frank, dancing in front of his expressionless face. And then, one by one, they zoom into the darkness of his open mouth. Once they're inside his body, they begin to conduct minuscule repairs on his exoskeleton, resealing bits of cable, welding loose connections back together, while you get to work wheeling Frank across the room, running a cable from his body to one of Azure's many power generators. And how did you do on that check?
Can you repeat what the check roll was again?
So it would be a knowledge, +2 for your mechanics, and +1 for employing your new little companions.
Oh yeah, I rolled a 21.
21. Nice. You slam the plug into the socket and step back, half expecting the entire room to be rocked by an explosion that never comes. Frank's mouth still hangs open. He remains silent, staring unseeing at everyone present. And then you see a little feathered cap poking out the corner of his lip, and then another, and then a third. You hold out your hand, and the 3 blowflies eagerly return, crawling up the sleeve of your trench coat. Azure flicks the switch on the generator, and a loud electronic hum fills the room. And then you wait. So, I'm going to explain what's happened. You've awakened something within Frank, something that was always within Frank, but never had the power to express itself. And while Alex White, Dr. Alex White, is no more real right now than he's ever been, entire swaths of his memories are currently flooding Frank's memory banks. And Frank, you're still there. You're still there. It's definitely you, not Alex. But now, you remember Alex's last days, his last moments, flashes of memory from throughout his life, snippets you talking to a lab assistant, toiling over your work, testing the results, arranging fail-safes and contingencies, the sudden, sharp shock of death. 20 minutes later, Azure's conducted some more work on Frank. Charlie's made sure that the power core does not overload, and with a stern look from both Patton and PU, Azure quickly decides that perhaps more of the processing power in Frank's new chip could be tied up with her processors. So, Azure, what is it that you do after seeing how that flood of raw processing power caused something to awaken in Frank?
I assume that like 50 times the processing power is perhaps a little bit intense for Frank to work out how to deal with for now. So I'm going to utilize more of that space with the security systems and security programs that I have, as well as maybe putting in some other things that can be unlocked at a later stage, if need be.
You end up making a sort of partition, like a hard drive partition on Frank's new chip, taking everything that you're sure is Frank and confining it into a partition the same size and specs as that old Easy Bake Oven chip, leaving the rest of the chip to comfortably run your protections and whatever else is buried in Frank's code. You nervously reassure Patton that the danger is past, and then with a flourish, disconnect the cords from Frank and wait with bated breath as his systems once again come back online, as his great body gives a hulking groan and pulls itself up. And Frank, you're back there, sitting on the mattress, seeing everyone watching you, not quite sure of what's just happened, not feeling very different at all, except for those fragments of memory that aren't yours. You're not quite sure what to make of them, not yet.
One thing Frank sees is PU's fist positioned over Azur's head, waiting to see if it's Frank or someone else who speaks first.
Patton clears his throat. You okay there, soldier? Report, soldier, report!
Well, Frank is looking around to see which soldier that Patton's talking to.
Patton immediately recognizes Frank, his old self. He breaks down laughing, wheezing as he wraps his hands around his ribs. Oh, Frank, you gave us all a bit of a scare there. I don't think your body was equipped for all that extra processing power, and something buried in your memory bank, something in that hunk of meat you got in your cranium woke up, and we had to put it back to sleep. How are you feeling, son?
Frank shrugs. I didn't see none of it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Patton shrugs in turn. He looks around the room, surveying the mess. He lets out a great sigh and he says, "Oh, well, it's done now. Azure got you working, got you back in fighting order, just like I said she would." And he looks over at PU and he says, I'm real sorry I trampled all over you there, soldier, but unforeseen circumstances and all. Top brass didn't alert us to that one.
Shit, don't worry about it, Treads. Isn't the first time I've been hidden by a large motor vehicle. And you're especially, rotund.
What's important is that Frank's brain is safeguarded from outside attack. And he thinks for a moment, swallows, and then once more looks into Frank's face as he stares into Frank's eyes, as if trying to see someone there who he can't see. He shakes his head. He looks down at Frank. He says, "Name Alex White ring any bells?"
Have any of us actually heard that name in the recent happenings? Like, has it actually been said out loud?
Mentioned just once, just when you were taking the bunker and that android recognized Frank. Dr. White, he called him.
Right.
Patton spends a few more moments studying Frank. He reaches out, taps Frank on the forehead, waves a finger, moving it between Frank's eyes, and he says, "Why don't you give us a tune, son?"
I don't have one in my head at the moment.
Oh my god. You
My
totally
God.
fucking fried him. I never thought I'd be sorry not to hear one of Frank's tunes. Did you fry me too?
Well, he seems to be in order, says Patton, waving his hands in front of Frank one last time. Frank! Tell me. A question only the real Frank would know. Who am I to you? Am I a commanding officer, or am I something else?
He's gonna look a little bit nervous, and he's gonna lean over. Who's standing closer? Is it gonna be Azure, Charlie, or
Probably
PU?
myself.
Who's
It'd be Azure.
closest?
Say probably Azure.
He's gonna lean over to Azure and says, "I gotta answer him like honestly."
You think that's what he wants?
Don't forget, he does sign our cred slips.
Oh, there's that, yeah. Be polite about it.
Okay, sir, being polite. You're the careless man. You're the careless Saudi man who lost his legs.
There's silence for a moment.
Reasonably polite.
Awkward silence
Yes.
as Patton grits his teeth and then throws his head.
And you cover your smell, which competes with PU sometimes. You do it real well with them cigars.
A lot more polite than I would have been.
He throws his head back and lets out the loudest, most jolly laugh you've ever heard. You've never heard Patton laugh like this. He wheezes, rocking back and forth on his treads for what feels like a full minute before finally he stops. He takes a breath. He composes himself.
Hearing this laughter, Azurka just lets out a kind of a sigh and just relaxes a bit. Oh, good.
Finally, Patton slaps Frank on the back and says, "Ah, that's our Frank. He's back.
Oh,
You
he
did a good
shouldn't have
job,
done
soldier."
that. He shouldn't have done that. Frank just had a brand new power system put in.
Yeah.
How much does the electroshocky thing do?
D6 damage. Go ahead and roll it.
I mean, I'm not trying to be obnoxious here.
No,
but,
it's
that
funny.
would be 6 points of damage.
As his
Oh, no.
head slaps Frank's shoulder, you all hear a surge, a buzz, and then all of a sudden, Patton's flung across the room. He hits the wall, leaving a dent in the side of one of.
I reckon that's my bad. My bad. That's on me. That was my bad. I'm awfully sorry.
he winces in pain in a heap, and it takes PU, Charlie, and Azure to help get him back onto his feet, rather treads again. He looks over at Frank Winston and says, "Yep, I should have known better. Just, he sighs. Felt like I'd been reunited with a long-lost friend. Know what I mean?"
Well, if you want me to shock you again, I'm happy to, if that's what it makes you feel like. I'll start to reach over.
Negative! Patton throws up his hands. You have a clean bill of health, and you are cleared for duty. Now, I know Ermac Ransom's been trying to get a hold of you, so I think it's best if we put any of this confusion and screaming and pain behind us. And before he finishes his sentence, you all hear a loud electronic beep. And Ermac Ransom's name flashes in the top right of your RCDs.
Oh shit, Ermac and cheese. Don't mind if we do.
You instantly see Ermac's face, his grey hair tinged with pink strands, wild and dishevelled around his head. He looks over his shoulder, paranoid, and then he says, so I've been looking into things with the Scorpions. I found something. I think you should, He stops mid-sentence, looks over his shoulder again. He says, meet me at my office. Ermac Ransom's detective agency. I'll ping you the details. It's up near Little Hell, up in the corner of the docks. Once again, he looks over his shoulder, paranoid. The pink says there's gonna be trouble, so make sure you're loaded for bear, and please, hurry. And then the call drops.
I think our pink glass gent is dipping a little bit too heavy into it.
Nods. He brushes some soot off the front of his chest and then peers towards the door, and he says, "Well, you heard the man. 10 Hut, you're deployed starting now. Back in active service. Move it, move it, move it!"
Is there any, is there much functional damage to the control room through all that?
Miraculously, most of your equipment appears to be humming along just fine. It is fairly durable.
While they're cruising along the traffic-ridden highways of Psy, PU blasting his music as per usual, he'll lean back over the chair to Frank and say, "Oi, big guy."
Yeah?
Now, listen closely, because I'm going to say this once.
Hang on. Hang on. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, Charlie. Sorry there, Rusty.
Yeah, the car shifts as he leans forward.
He's moving forward and getting into the front seat. You
Frank,
said you wanted me to listen closely.
Yeah, you had me worried. You might be a big hunk of junk, but you're our hunk of junk. And you're part of my crew. Don't go fucking scaring me like that again, okay?
I think I broke your steery shifty thingy.
Oh, I never used that anymore.
Hands you the... yeah, of course you wouldn't. And then he's going to apologize to the others as he goes back to his seat in the back seat.
And the Axie seems to drive a little bit slower. Several other cars passing it on the highway as it accounts for Frank's newly added physique. But the old seems to be back to his old self. His movements are a bit snappier, a bit sharper. Maybe his body's making use of that extra power, but in his mind, well, that's still Frank. And you can give him all the processing power in the world, and he still won't be any quicker on the uptake. And so, the Axie carries you over one of the trash-choked canals of Size Port District. Affectionately known as Little Hell. This is the northernmost point of the docks. It's right on the edge of Evergreen Bay. That must have been named a couple hundred years ago because you've never seen the bay green in your entire lives. The water is a perpetual murky black. The sky above is caked with smog and an endless stream of ads as anywhere else. Axie comes to a stop in front of the Ransom Detective Agency at the end of a little cul-de-sac hidden away in a nest of maze-like narrow cobblestone streets. The detective agency appears to have once been a townhouse. You can see the unmistakable markers of turn-of-the-century architecture, but it's since been repurposed. First as a corporate office, then as one of the port's many brothels, and now finally as Ransom's detective agency. The facade of the townhouse, or what's left of it, is inundated with neon signs, each of them displaying either Ermac Ransom's names in all capitals, a line drawing of his face and proclaiming, "Results! Guaranteed, or your money back."
And,
the lights are all on, but there's no sign of Ermac, and as Axie slows, you see a single car parked on the curb in front of the building. A green, soft-top lowrider, a big red scorpion emblazoned over the driver's side door.
Oh, cool. Scorpions, we love them.
And remind me, our fiberglass huffing buddy was trying to stay low-key, was he? Not exactly inconspicuous, is it?
No.
Well, that's okay.
You want me to put that scorpion car in a dumpster?
You know, Frank, that's one of the best ideas you've ever had.
Maybe not just yet. Let's find out who's going to attack us when we do that first.
Good point. Maybe we
I
should.
really want to see the car on a dumpster.
Or the dumpster in a car.
But for sure, on our way out, you do it.
But can you at least take the axles out while we're here?
Look, we're waiting. We don't want them to come back.
You see this unmistakably Scorpion-affiliated car. You look up at the brightly lit windows of the detective agency. The blinds have been pulled up, and there's a clear view from the street into the office. You can see the curvature of desks, the edges of cubicles, but there's no sign of life in the building.
Can I scope over the windows with my heat vision and see if I pick up any heat signatures cruising on the other side of the glass?
You sure can. Without leaving Axie, you just pull up in front of the detective agency, Axie idling parallel to the gang car. As everyone watches, you crane your neck, leaning out the window, looking up at the townhouse's windows, dabbing your finger at the buttons on your visor. Go ahead, PU, and make me a presence check. You may add +2 if you have investigation or perception.
That I do not, sadly.
However, I am allowing you to make this roll because you do have the heat vision.
18.
18. Nice. Everyone else cranes their necks up, trying to see what you're seeing, but they can't detect heat, not like you can. You look up
but
at
we
them.
can deploy our little friends.
Indeed, you can.
So
And
I don't
so
know
at
about Charlie, but Spot is going into the air.
Spot is going in. As soon as you see PU sliding his goggles down, you realize he's scoping the place out. You wind down one of Axie's windows and fetch Spot out of his normal place in your coat and hold out your hand. He gives a grateful whir as his wings begin to buzz and he takes flight. And Charlie, do you release the 3 flyer-tears?
Well, I kind of want to wait until PU lets us know if he actually sees anything, and if he doesn't, then I'll send them in just in case they're deeper in the building.
Good idea. So PU, make your roll, and Frank, go ahead and make me a presence +2 for your perception roll, please.
I believe I already made the roll at 18.
18, yep. Sorry, I forgot.
16.
16. So Frank, as Spot flits around, as you see the view of the narrow street, the facade of the townhouse through his eyes, you can't help but notice everything seems slightly clearer. The response time in Spot's vision has obviously increased, and you're able to see things that you normally wouldn't. It must be some of that processing power at play. Spot must be piggybacking on the increased output, utilizing some of that juice. And so, PU, as you peer up into one of the brightly lit windows of the townhouse, you see the unmistakable form of 2 human silhouettes. You switch back to normal vision. You can't see them. It's an empty office. You could see a desk, a bit of a cubicle, what looks like the shape of a water cooler off in the corner. And then, boop, you switch back to heat vision and they're standing there. They don't appear to be brandishing any weapons. They don't appear to be moving. They're just standing silently just beyond the window. You can't tell if they're facing you or if their backs are turned, but they're unmistakably there.
I think we've got ourselves some visible assailants up in the place. They're picking up on heat vision, but not through the old peepers. Might have to take this as low key as we can until we jump or get jumped.
You say
On the upper
this.
floor?
Yeah. The first floor, at least from where you're sitting inside Axie, the first floor appears to be nothing more than a reception lobby. Most of Ermac's business appears to be up on the second floor. It's likely the first floor is his living quarters. You hear a tapping on Axie's window as Spot returns. Frank holds out his hand and the little dragonfly zooms down, landing on it, immediately climbing, scurrying up Frank's sleeve back into his normal spot. Frank, Spot did a full flyover of the building, and not only is there the Scorpion car out front, but there's a black van parked at the end of an alleyway that runs alongside the building, just outside what you assume to be the house's rear entrance, the metal door slightly ajar even now. And you also see through Spot's vision 2 Gangoons clad in the telltale scorpion leathers standing guard, leaning up against the side of the van, smoking and chatting gleefully.
Well, I tell everybody about the van. Well, actually, I just take a photo, a screenshot, send it to their heads ups, and I just say, That's what Spot saw around over there.
Okay, so the Scorps are definitely here.
Can I see if I can download a map of the place?
Sure. Go ahead and make me a knowledge technology check.
Under pressure?
I'd say you're under pressure. You're not sure what's going on, but Ermac Ransom seemed pretty urgent in his call, and the Scorpions are definitely on premises.
Does Axie, by any chance, have any of those road flares?
Are you asking if PU has invested in road safety?
There might be one left over in the trunk or something, buried under filth from when it was actually used as a taxi, but...
I rolled.
Well, I was
11.
thinking that it might be, according to PU, a handy incendiary device.
PU carries strips of magnesium that which he can light with his incinerate thumb.
That's a very good point, and
We could
Well-
maybe give a strip of magnesium to your little dragonfly buddy, and he could drop it off where needed.
or I kind of forgot to mention. You guys have noticed, you know those really big industrial casters you see on those really massive carts.
Think so? Yes.
Hmm.
At some point in that last, Frank welded a pair of them to his knees and a pair of them to his elbows.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you can see Frank is making plans. You can see the cogs wheeling in his head of going down
Frank is
onto the
becoming a
ground,
transformer.
not properly understanding that the DM described the road as cobblestone, and he's going to try and roll himself up to the nearby car, subtly and stealthily.
So he's just gonna leave Axie and roll up as Axie. So let me ask this: PU, are you gonna stop Axie, or are you just gonna drive past, let Frank get out, and double back, let him do the scouting?
If Frank wants to go for it, I'm happy to accommodate it because we don't get ideas from Frank often, and we have to encourage them. And then pull up through a lesser seen area to maybe put some pressure through the back.
Yeah. So, wedged in the back seat between Frank and the window, Azure's furiously typing, trying to get access to some sort of map, some sort of plan of this townhouse. An exclamation mark pops up on her mask and you hear her breathe the words, as suddenly the floor plan for Ermac's office shows up in your RCDs. It's a wide open building. The majority of the interior is taken up by office space. There are exactly two entrances that you can tell. The front entrance and the back entrance. The back entrance is obviously guarded. The van's parked there. There are two Scorpions waiting for anyone to show up. But there are also the two windows looking out from Ermac's office and an office next to it onto the adjoining street. And a quick sweep with your heat vision as Axie rolls past PU reveals that nobody seems to be looking out of those windows. It's only the one at the front that looks out at the road. Axie slows, and the back door opens as Frank slides out and begins to glide across the cobblestone street. You assume Frank thinks he's moving gracefully, but his whole body's just vibrating violently, jostling between the grooves on the cobblestone. But Frank, you're able to roll up to the car without making any heavy footfalls on the cobblestone, and if anyone's listening, they would not have heard you. Meanwhile, Axie continues on down the street, turns into a vacant lot at the very end, and finally the engines stop as Azure, PU, and Charlie alight the vehicle. So Frank, you're on the scene first. The others will arrive momentarily. What would you like to do?
Well, he got the whole electro thingy, which we said that he can do some spot welding. Does that mean that he can ignite the magnesium and maybe stick it and wedge it in to the fuel tank? And then get out of there before the heat reaches the fuel and causes the detonation?
Yeah. You can, but PU's parking Axie and doesn't have a lit magnesium. Or did PU light a magnesium strip before Frank evacuated?
No, I think Frank was going to light the magnesium using electricity. He got the magnesium from
PU, yes.
If you're asking what is the purpose of this, I don't have a clue. This is just what Frank came up with. He's just setting fire. He's just setting the Scorpion car on it. That's all he's doing.
You think if the others saw you, they'd probably rationalize this as a distraction, and in fact, as the rest of you alight from Axie in the nearby parking lot, you see Frank's hulking form descend upon the Scorpion's car. You see the electricity surge through his fingers and the magnesium strip ignite, and as he flips open the fuel tank and prepares to drop it in, the rest of you rationalize it as some sort of distraction. Frank, it's fairly easy for you to do. No one's heard you. No one knows you're here. You expend the last of the energy in your shockers for tonight as the magnesium strip bursts into flame, and then what do you plan to do? Just drop it in and run?
Oh, I plan to go back onto my elbows, knees, and skateboard over to where the others are.
So Frank, go ahead and roll an agility check for me. Add +1 to it because of your newly acquired wheels.
Oh, okay, that's going to be a total of a dirty 20 then.
Nice.
Dirty 20. Ooh. So the rest of you are still in the adjoining parking lot. You're slowly making your way down the street towards Ermac's office, and you all feel your breath hang in your throat as Frank drops that magnesium strip into the fuel tank. You brace yourselves for the inevitable explosion and wince, not expecting Frank to get away. And then, Frank, what does it look like? What do the rest see as you make your way, as you drop down and wheel away?
I don't know if it's a tradition in Australia anywhere, but in the US they have these soapbox rallies and these bobsled rallies where you make these death carts out of bits of wood and basically roller skates, and then you lay in it and you go down a hill, or mountain if you happen to live vaguely near one. And you go at about 600 miles per hour, and then you lose control and you die horribly. And this is what you do for fun. So he's basically now able to bobsled whenever he likes. He just lays down.
So he just grabs the lid of a nearby dumpster, wrenches it off the hinges with his gargantuan strength saw, and then you all watch in amazement as he lies down on it like a bobsled and wheels himself away, speeding down the street. Again, a bit less gracefully than he perhaps intends, as his whole body rattles on the cobblestone, and you hear the metal trash can lid scraping and jostling around, and then...
Can I just ask, what is the lid for?
Well, you're using it as a bobsled, are you not?
No, he's using his...
Oh, he's using his own, yeah. So you're just seeing him glide along, seeing him rattle up and down as his wheels glide over the cobblestones, and then...
Good thing that chip I worked on has a really secure connection.
Yeah, and then whoosh! The car goes up in an explosion. You feel intense heat buffeting you, even though you're still feet away at this point. The entire street seems to, for a split second, be engulfed in intense burning heat. Your eyes begin to water, and then the heat subsides just a little. A massive plume of black smoke rises from the now burning Scorpion car. You hear someone's voice shout, "What the fuck? The fuck was that?" And then PU, those two humanoid shapes staring out through the front window on the second floor, blink and materialize. They turn off their cloaking devices as one of them barks a silent order through his RCD, and you see several shapes moving in the well-lit office. Scorpions running to investigate the explosion. One by one, they'll be charging out through the front door onto the street.
Do we stay out here and greet them, or break in through a window and lock the door behind them?
As fun as it is to rip and shred and tear through a whole bunch of gangoons that are worth less than me, I don't exactly want to get riddled myself. I mean, with a bit of a leap and a jump and maybe a throw, I could probably reach one of the windows from here.
Let's go.
Hey, Frank, you want to try and throw me?
All right.
Oh, I was thinking the vacant office. You can go through there, lock the door behind them if they come out.
I hadn't realized that the vacant office had
They have windows. I don't know if they're accessible, like openable, or we just force our way through.
So there's a narrow alley that runs along the northern side of the building, eventually leading to the back door. And these two offices, Ermac's office and the vacant office, the northern-facing windows look down onto that alleyway. They're on the second floor, but aside from that, they appear to be entirely unprotected.
Alright, so a little bit of a chuck through should be alright.
Okay, Frank is gonna make a move to try, because what he's gonna do is he's gonna throw a brick to make sure that these are bulletproof, like, transparent aluminum windows. Because if he hurls his friend at the window, he wants his friend to be able to actually go through the window. Does that make sense?
Come on, I got a dome thicker than yours, mate. I'll be fine.
So, as the front door bursts open and the gangoons begin to charge down the stairs that eventually will reach the lobby and the street, PU and Frank are already on their way. Frank rolling once again on all fours down the narrow alleyway as PU silently sprints behind. And Azure and Charlie, what are you guys doing?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because you're standing
at
in
least
the
to
street.
stay out of the sight. Initially, yes. So definitely, I'm going to follow them that way to stay out of sight.
Do you plan to enter the building the same way as Frank and PU?
I had originally thought that was the ground floor, so it was going to be a bit easier.
Yeah, I apologize. The map's a bit
that's fair.
unclear. Consider, like, where I've drawn a dotted line on the map, there's like a first floor reception room that's adjoined to this front door.
It has like stairs going up or something.
Yeah, stairs going up to
inside
the
the building,
office.
or
yeah.
Right.
Well, you can see now that the door's open and the scorpions are beginning to charge out. You can see the long, narrow staircase just beyond the reception counter that leads up to the second floor.
Well, at the very least, to start with, I'd like to get out of sight.
Yeah. Well,
So
in
I'll
that
probably
case,
head that way to follow them.
yeah. Well, in that case, I will ask Charlie and Azure to please go ahead and make agility checks, +2 if you have stealth. Because neither of you are quite as fast as PU or Frank with his wheels.
I don't suppose a 6 is enough.
Any glitches left?
Oh, I probably should. Yeah, I'm gonna roll a glitch. That's my last glitch. I wanted to use one on tech to see what these dice do, but okay, that's
And
better. That's a 16.
16. And Charlie, how about you?
15.
15. Yeah, you see, you realize what Frank and PU are going to do, and then you realize that any second now, those scorpions are going to eyeball you in the street and open fire when they see you standing in front of their burning car, in the vicinity of
Wasn't me,
their
I
burning
swear.
car. So, as an exclamation mark appears on Azure's face mask, she grabs Charlie by the hand and leads him into the alleyway, following after PU and Frank. Rusty bounds behind, his tail wagging, his metallic tongue panting. And then, when you're in the alleyway, the first thing you see is Frank raising a large brick. And Frank, what is your strength score?
Hang on a second. Oh, it's +3, sorry.
+3. So I won't make you roll. You've got more than enough strength to hurl a brick up to the second floor. You let go of the brick, it sails up to the second floor, hits the glass, and it doesn't break through it, but it does leave a long crack, at least a foot long, with several smaller cracks sort of branching off it.
Rightio,
like a
okay.
tree.
Well, clearly, some more effort is going to have to be made. Frank is going to leap up and grab hold of something so that he can rip his way through the glass. And then he's going to drop down, grab PU him after he has ripped the glass away.
Oh, PU, are you agreeable to this?
Yeah, no, I think if anyone's going to be able to chuck me, I think it's going to be Frank. And P is open to the idea, so he suggested it. I'm happy to go for it.
Right? Frank kneels down, holds out his hands, and you step onto the palm of one of them, and you're not at all prepared for how suddenly Frank flings you up.
I was going to make sure that the glass was removed first.
Ah, that's right. You're removing the glass. How were you doing that again? Sorry,
no, that was what had been a halfway interesting plan is now silly because it's going to involve Frank half climbing up the building and then manually excavating the glass to then down and lob PU. It's not in any way, shape, subtle, or fast.
If there's one thing that Frank's good at, it's excavating. He clambers up the side of the building, grabbing hold of a drain pipe, and his weight is so much that the drain pipe sags just as he wraps his hands around it. He finally reaches the glass and begins to dig his hands into the window frame, pounding at it, excavating the pane of glass. Each time he digs in, the entire building seems to shudder, and there's a loud crashing noise. Charlie and Azure, at the mouth of the alleyway, you wince as you hear the bangs and scrapes of Frank excavating the glass. You peer around the corner into the street, and you see at least 3 scorpions, all of them heavily armed with mil-spec equipment, gathered around the burning vehicle. They're loudly discussing what's happened, trying to find the source of the disturbance, and then they hear one of the loud bangs caused by Frank. One of them hisses out, "Shh!" They raise their guns and begin to fan around the street, and one of them creeps towards the alleyway.
Are there any devices nearby the ones further back that I could make explode?
So you can see there's myriad of signs attached to the front of the townhouse advertising Ermac services. Across the road, there's what purports to be a fresh fish deli, though you sincerely doubt any such thing exists inside. And there's a brightly coloured display of fresh ocean fish of all different colours, a holographic display, all of them swimming around in a beautiful coral reef attached to the front of that store.
Sounds like it would explode nicely as a distraction.
Meanwhile, Charlie, you notice several of the signs attached to Ermac's office are quite, in your opinion, quite clumsily attached. There's loose wiring hanging everywhere. Several of the signs are lopsided. It literally looks as if somebody has bolted a bunch of neon signs to the front of an otherwise ordinary townhouse. If you could somehow get to one of those signs, you might be able to cause an electrical surge, adding to Azure's distraction.
I personally don't need to get to the signs, but I have something that can. Or 3 little somethings that can.
One for all and all for one! The 3 blowflies exposit as they fly in tiny little voices. All for one and one for all! As you pull back the hem of your trench coat and they come buzzing out, immediately beelining for a huge pink neon line drawing of Ermac's broadly smiling face. So, Azure, I'd like you to make a... well, are you using your app for this?
That was the plan, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like you to go ahead and make your app roll, while Charlie, I'd like you to go ahead and make me a knowledge check and add +2 for your mechanics.
23 on my app roll.
Lovely.
Natural 20 again.
Nice.
Natural 20. Nice. Hey, you! Check over there! Says one of the scorpions, pointing to the mouth of the alleyway. One of the other scorpions nods. He raises his assault rifle to eye level as he creeps towards the alleyway, and then suddenly... You see 3 tiny pinpricks zooming away from the neon sign of Ermac's face, just as the pink neon grows brighter and brighter, and then the tubes explode, showering sparks and glass down into the street. Ah! What? Shout the scorpions, fanning their guns around. Just as Azure slides the app cartridge into her cyber deck and smiles beneath her mask as she hits the enter key, the fish deli across the street explodes in a maelstrom of colours and sounds as each of the holographic projectors pop one by one. The brightly coloured holographic fish flicker and die as the scorpions closest to the other side of the street shriek in surprise and pain, diving for cover to avoid the onslaught of broken glass. And then, just as the distraction is away, Frank finishes his task. There's one more loud scrape as Frank wrenches the entire pane of glass from the window and throws it down into the alleyway where it shatters, where it lands with a loud clang. And then he beckons to PU. PU, I'd like you to go ahead and make an agility check. You may add +2 if you have acrobatics, but you'll also be able to roll this with advantage because Frank is helping you up.
I wouldn't be able to argue that my thievery could help me in this way, could I?
Actually, yeah, you are breaking and entering.
Okay. Sure. I assume stealthy doesn't apply because it's not being stealthy at this point.
No, not at this point. Not with Frank hammering at the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that ship has sailed.
Well, that's a nat 20 for the first roll, so I'll be okay.
Ooh, very nice. You shimmy halfway up the drain pipe, and then you feel Frank's arms wrap around your torso, lift you up, and Frank, how do you toss him? Do you do it carefully, or do you just casually toss him up as if you're hurling a football into a goalpost? Doesn't matter either way, because with that nat 20, as Frank hurls PU up, and you're unprepared for the force at which Frank just hurls you violently straight up, your reflexes immediately kick in. You right yourself in midair, reach out and grab hold of the top part of the window frame, of the little outcropping that's there, pulling yourself up and deftly sliding through the now empty window frame, landing in Ermac Ransom's office. It's
10-point landing if I've ever seen one.
The office is almost entirely empty. It's this huge open room about the size of a bedroom. Obviously one of the townhouse's bedrooms has been repurposed into his personal office, but it's mostly empty save for a row of filing cabinets along one wall and a imposing mahogany desk about a foot from the window right in front of you. And cowering underneath it, hands over his head, shaking with fear, is Ermac Ransom himself. I swear, I'll get you. I'll do whatever you need to do. You want money? You want money? You want pink glass? I can. And then he sees PU staring down at him.
Well, Ermac, if you're offering creds, I'm always happy to accept. But I thought you might need a little bit of help.
I thought you were one of the scorpions, he says, relief.
How dare you!
Blooding. The glass, the pink told me you'd arrive in time and everything would be okay, but then I heard something banging on the wall and the whole building was shaking. I thought those scorpions had got a mech or a bulldozer or something, and you hear shouting, muffled shouting from out in the street. He says, there was an explosion or something. All of the scorpions ran for it. And there's two out in the hallway out there keeping guard, but I don't think they're expecting anything to pop through the window.
Well, that's why I'm here, pretty boy. Let's take care of it then, eh?
Mac nods. Go ahead.
He's gonna lean his head out the window to check in on his buddies before he goes to clean up the trash left behind.
See Frank standing where he left you after hurling you up through the window, and Charlie and Azure at the mouth of the alleyway, peeking around the corner, surveying the carnage that's unfolding.
He's gonna flash a great big cheesy smile and a big old thumbs up, and he'll move to the door to take care of him.
As you creep towards the door, Ermac looks up, his eyes wide. He raises an eyebrow. He says, "You're gonna try and take him out all on your lonesome?"
Oh, Ermac, I'm not gonna try.
Didn't you ever hear? What is it? Patton always says that discretion's the better part of valor. And he begins to edge towards the window, but then realizes he doesn't really have a way down and just stops, waiting to see what you'll do.
It's not a matter of trying, I think. I just have a feeling I'd be alright.
And Pew will carefully and quietly open the door and raise his smart guns to unleash hell.
Yeah. The two men are standing in front of the main window that peers down onto the street. One of them's got his hand to his RCD, barking orders. Oh, get out of cover. It came from the deli across the street. Sweep it, take anyone. Ermax probably called for, you idiots, god damn it. He smacks at his RCD, trying to dispel the electronic interference that's currently bombarding it. He doesn't notice you, and nor does his friend as you creep out of the door, lean around the corner, and take aim. Go ahead and roll your first attack roll, and you may roll with advantage, as these men are unaware.
Stealth and stealthy will apply in this case, will it not?
Indeed it will.
Don't mind if I do. So I'm going to be unleashing with a auto fire as I bring this first attack in.
Yep.
And it will be done with dual wielding.
Dual wielding, very nice. So I'll give you two options here. You can target one of the men, or as you're dual wielding, you can hit both of them and split the damage between them.
Sure, why not?
If you can drop both of them with a single attack.
Let's try it. Might as well go for the flourish. First roll is an 8, which becomes, let's see, +4, +2, and +2. That becomes a 14. To hit.
That's definitely a hit. Go ahead, roll the
both
damage.
Damage die are going to roll with my dual attack. And that's going to be 12 points of damage in the first shot.
So you'd like to do 6 to each?
I sure would.
Well, you know scorpions. They're never heavily armored. These men are no different from the others. Aside from the bulky cloaking devices they're wearing under their leather jackets, all they're wearing is the standard scorpion gear. Leather vest, torn, ripped jeans, gnarly shoulder pads, but nothing in the way of armor. No helmets, no bulletproof vests. And so, as your RCD beeps, telling you that the smart gun is locked on, do you have any witty one-liners?
Oi, dickheads! I can see you!
The two men whirl around. They see you standing there. They fumble for their weapons. Just as you pull the trigger, bang, bang, bang! One of them straight in the head, the other center mass, and then another into his shoulder, and then one more into his stomach for good measure. Within seconds, the two scorpions lie bleeding dead at your feet. Outside, you could still hear shouting. The street by now is almost entirely obscured in thick black smoke. The other scorpions completely unaware that their underbosses are down for the count.
PU's going to scramble forward towards the underboss who he could see was sending signals with his RCD. And he's going to blip through a message to Azor and say, yo, Az, jack into my RCD.
All right.
And if she is able to connect, is it possible for me to take out my smart link from my gun and attach it to his RCD? To try and provide some kind of connection for Azor to then pass through?
No, your smart link is unfortunately surgically implanted in your head, but this shouldn't be too hard for Azure. You send her the message, and sure enough, Azure, you have proficiency in technology, right?
Yeah.
And what was your knowledge score?
3.
3, yeah, so that's 5 altogether. It's only an RCD, it's the most basic consumer electronics. You tap a couple of buttons, and within seconds, your RCDs are linked. You're seeing through PU's eyes, peering down at the quite gruesomely executed underbosses, and beyond that, the window and the thick smoke beyond.
These,
made short work of these up here?
Yeah, they were, not too smart about it, but this one,
PU says, grabbing onto his RCD and pulling it away from his face, with every snapping bit of skin that would include,
this one here, he's jacked into the rest of them. He's sending through. Maybe you can fry him that way.
Entirely up to you.
So what are we thinking? Like, try and damage them through it, or try and give them some orders through it?
Well, you, with your knowledge of 3, you know that both would be possibilities. You could essentially overload their RCDs. It probably wouldn't kill them, but it would definitely disorient them. It might convince them to back off, or at the very least make them easy pickings to take out. Or you could try to spoof a command from their underboss.
I don't know exactly what I would make the command aside from something like flee.
You know that if you were able to make it convincing enough, if you were able to disguise it in packets sent from the underboss's RCD, they'd have no way at all to tell that it's fake. Not run-of-the-mill gang goons like this.
Yeah,
You
I think
doubt
I'd be
half
going
of them
for
even understand how the RCDs work.
something along the lines of, we've been made, flee. Get out of here, we'll regroup at the usual place. Something like that.
Alright, go ahead and roll me a presence check, but you may add +2 for your technology to this.
Oh, jeez. Hope someone's got some glitches. Oh, no,
Alright,
no
yeah,
need.
good.
16.
16, nice. PU, you're standing at the edge of the window, peering down through the smoke, watching the vaguely defined shapes of the scorpions sweeping the street, and as soon as Azure says, "Here we go," you're expecting a show. You're expecting their RCDs to explode, for their heads to pop as she fries them all, and then...
You just, through PU's RCD Azure, you can see PU mimicking his fingers over their heads, mimicking their heads popping.
Ready to explode, and then a voice rings out. You hear it in your RCD, and it's the same thing they're hearing. Shit! Shit! We've been made! Get to cover! Rendezvous at the safe house! Go, go, go! And feeling the disappointment welling over you, PU, you have no choice but to watch. Watch as all of the scorpions nod, wave in acknowledgement up towards the window, sling their weapons over their shoulders, and scatter to the night like scared insects scurrying from the sun.
Sorry, PU.
Zor?
RCDs are not quite that explosive.
That's so boring.
I know.
When Frank hears all of that, can he go and deal with the van?
Yeah. Frank, you head down the alleyway towards the back door. The black van is there. The 2 scorpions that were standing guard by the back door are gone, leaving the van, back doors open, waiting for their captive to be bundled inside. There's a single... You can see, Frank, with your perception proficiency, the vaguely defined silhouette of a single driver in the driver's seat, hunched over the steering wheel, waiting for his signal to go, unaware of the chaos that's unfolding on the other side of the building.
Gently open the door. Gently extract him from the car and point out that he is to leg it that way, and I point away.
Go ahead, make a strength check for me, Frank. And you do have intimidations, add +2.
Have I got intimidation now? Now?
Actually, no. Oh no, I forgot. That was you originally had it and you swapped it for
I rolled a 1, so I'm going to glitch that.
That's a good idea.
I haven't figured. It's about a 15 at this stage.
You open the door, peer down at the driver, this wiry, weedy little man. He's got an impressive mohawk of long, pointed green spikes, but that's about the only impressive thing about him. And it's clearly
I pet the mohawk.
It's clearly just for show as you reach out, pet one of the spikes on the mohawk.
Oh no, I'm petting the whole mohawk like he's a cat. That's a great little mohawk. I think you should run for your life.
You
I
run
think
your
you should go
hand
that
over
way.
it. His whole body shudders as the palm of your hand glides over his scalp. And then he looks up at you, each of the spikes on his mohawk forlorn now, pressed down against his skin. He gulps, and then he nods, and then he makes for the passenger side door, pushing it open, scrambling out and running into the night. You hear his footfalls rapidly decreasing in volume as he scrambles as fast as he can down the alleyway, rounding the corner at the end. And then, in the building, PU, you hear Ermac Ransom. Psst, hey, how'd it go? You see him poking his head out of his office. In spite of everything that's going on, he's smiling.
You couldn't foresee that one, huh?
Hey, the Pink told me you'd get here in time and that you'd handle it, but well, I didn't quite expect you to do it like that. Come in, he says, beckoning you to follow him into his office.
Yeah, can do. He is gonna yell through the window. Oi, guys! I think we're cleared.
Ermac pokes his head out of the removed window, and then he calls down into the alleyway. Hey, you two, get up here. I got a job for you.
I thumbs up, and then we, I guess, head round to find our way inside.
Frank is
Front door, I
in
guess.
the van making vroom vroom noises.
Frank's sitting in the van. You all...
He's gonna send through a
I'll-
message saying,
Yeah.
Frank, come up, please. Ermac's
I
office.
stole you another car, PU. It's a van. It's a new van. It's fine. You can spend months or years making this thing filthy.
To be
Give it
that
3
could be
days.
useful.
Frank's got a childlike grin from ear to ear when he finally makes his way upstairs and joins the rest of you in Ermac's office.
Do any of the rest of us know how to drive?
I'd say you could try to drive.
I like that.
None of you have licenses, but that's never stopped PU. A license is a formality in Psi anyway.
Believe it or not, Charlie has a proficiency in drive.
He does,
Oh.
yes.
There you go. You have a new car.
Maybe I'll take you up on that offer, says Charlie to Frank, as Ermac invites you all in. He spends a moment brushing down his coat, fixing his hair, and then he clambers into his chair after he lifts it up from the ground, leans back in it, and plops his feet on the desk. Good thing you made it when you did, he says. Scorpions thought they'd finally got me. Thought they'd got me by the balls because... His eyes glimmer. Our old boy Solitaire? He had a dead man switch. And guess what was just activated?
Our new payment plan for saving your ass?
Yeah, we'll get to that. And with that, we'll leave this session here.
"Oh, okay, something's gone off with Solitaire."
Yeah, go ahead, everyone. Roll your glitches to recover.
Oh, I believe I need to actually make 2 rolls for ammo because I did use fight.
Yes.
I was forced to shoot in the first fight.
Yes. And Frank and PU, you may each roll D4 and recover that much health. Azure, when you roll your glitches, add +1 to whatever you roll. This cannot exceed your glitch maximum, though.
Well, that just means I don't have to roll because my minimum is 1, and if you add 1 to that, that's 2, and that's my max.
Ah, well. You feel Frank's D&D dice humming with energy in your hand.
I didn't get the chance to buy more mags, so I'm running a bit low.
Don't worry, you'll have a chance next session. And so, once again, reunited with your favorite client, Ermac, you get the sense things are about to go down. Solitaire's dead man switch has activated, and you're in for a hell of a job. You can see it. You can see it in Ermac's face, the lines in the corners of his eyes, his disheveled, greying hair. The fact that the Scorpions finally made a move on him. It's gonna be do or die, punks. See you next time. And there we go. That'll conclude the session.
Very exciting.
Good session. Oh, I really liked how cleanly that went.